Hey folks, and welcome back to Friday Morning Coffee. I'm Daniel Ford, and this Friday's Cup of Joe comes to us courtesy of Dave Pezza, who interviewed blues rocker Patrick Sweany. As always, you can find the rest of Writer's Bone's content on our website, www.writersbone.com, on Facebook at facebook.com/writersbone, and on Twitter at writersbone. Keep writing, everyone.
So, let's just start off a little bit with, where you're from, where you started playing, and how you sort of got into what you're doing to now. Like, when did you decide that this was going to be, making music, touring? When did you decide that this was going to be what you, wanted dedicated your life?
To be honest, I knew it was what I wanted to do when I was about 12 years old. I just heard these old records, and I just thought that's so exciting. That's completely different and cool and exciting than anything I've ever experienced. So I want to do that. And then it was sort of always, trying to find it. But I was even in college, this year's my 20th year at this job.
Wow,
and it went by so fast, just so fast.
Right.
And I just, I loved it. It's just been great to kind of, still be in the game. I don't know anybody that I grew up with that still got the same job.
Yeah.
So that's, and I really like my job. So that makes a big deal to me. But
awesome.
Yeah. But I got into playing music because my dad played, and he's a fingerstyle folk guitar player and was into folk music and guys
cool.
like Pete Seeger and Leadbelly and stuff. So I grew up on that.
Wow.
And that was in his collection. He had a good record collection, and I would dig through that, and so I heard the first Bob Dylan records, all the ones before Highway 61. He stopped buying them when Dylan started putting too much electric stuff.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, and then, there was a lot of stuff. And then there was like some of the guys, like he liked jug band music and had an abortive attempt at putting a jug band together in college. And, but he had some of those records, guys like by Dave Van Ronk and Jim Quest, who were sort of folk revival guys into blues and that sort of root stuff.
Right.
And and he had the first John Hammond record, which just cool looking white dude and a cool looking jean jacket on the front of the cover. I just thought, man, so he can do that, and he did this back then. He can play this kind of music and still be cool and I was like, I want to try that. And then guys like Kerner Ray and Glover, who were a big influence on Dylan, they were up from where he was from. I was listening to those records, and then I found the real thing. That all read the back of the albums and found Lightnin' Hopkins and Leadbelly and, Fats Domino and like a lot of, Sam Cooke and all that kind of stuff. And so at the same time in Ray Charles, and then it was all over for me. But then I was also digging into stuff like Robert Johnson and Son House and people like Reverend Gary Davis, and as I sort of got into it, and by the time I was into that stuff, I was starting to be, and I was in college. I just started college, and I went to Kent State University in Ohio. I grew up in a town called Massillon, Ohio, which is northeast Ohio, about an hour south of Cleveland.
Okay.
And my folks still live there. My brother still lives there.
It's cool. It's nice to know that. Obviously, you have your roots there, but it's nice when you have a home to go back to that's more than just like your hometown. Like there's plenty there, and that's how it is in Rhode Island.
No, that's definitely.
Still sort of based that way. Like I have a lot of my family here, and it's nice to know that wherever I go or end up, that you have that peace.
Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is. And I was for up until I had to make the move to Nashville, which is where I live now, and I live in East Nashville. actually just down the road from John McCulley and Joe Fletcher. Yeah. But I was first in the neighborhood. So, I was really behind staying home and, making it happen from there.
Right.
And from Massillon and living there or in Akron, the last year I lived there. I lived in Highland Square in Akron, and which is only about like 20 minutes, from my folks' house. I mean, not far at all. But there just wasn't the talent pool that could tour to make it happen. And at that time, my entire income was based on on touring and playing shows. And mind you, Ohio was a cool place. I had residencies where I could count on that dough, week to week, and would use that to sort of fund and defray costs of touring or just keep the bills paid until touring became profitable.
Right.
Yeah. And so that it just all happened. I mean, it happened pretty logically. I mean, or linearly rather. I knew if I wanted to play, I had to entertain people, and I didn't want to play covers of pop music. So I really dove into this blues thing because it was something that I could learn from, and and it was just a well that never ran out, and it's it will never run out. You can always dive deeper into those recordings and all these huge number of people who did brilliant original things within a form. Instead of of rewriting the book, these guys that work within a structure and find their own uniqueness within a structure. That was really, really, really attractive to me. And that's sort of the thing that I found about soul music and gospel music that connected that. There's a Joe Tex song is just triplets and it's 2 chords, but he tells this amazing story through his personality and his voice. That sort of thing just fascinated me.
Right. And it's really interesting to hear you say that because I was trying to come up with questions and whatnot to talk about your style. And it totally makes sense with your dad's folk influence, the soul influence, the gospel. I mean, you even, if, correct me if I'm wrong, you had a banjo pick you were playing up there with, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the way my dad plays, and that's the way he showed me to play, his finger style. And it tends to be a little more archaic style of guitar, than most, but, it has a distinctive sound. And it actually a distinctive thing, so I always put it against things that normally a normal picker would flat pick, but it's also the tone, like Freddie, even guys, like as late as Freddie King, he used a thumb pick and metal finger pick. Muddy Waters, beginning of his career, B.B. King did, and then he got a bit more, he got more sophisticated and found his own identity, switched to the flat pick. But the old guys, the guys that were connected to that older thing that was so fascinating to me, that was the way that they played. And also guys like Doc Watson and Lester Flatt, that Lester Flatt played, was one that was there at the beginning of bluegrass, and he played it with the thumb pick and finger pick, and his name is Jimmy Martin. So you have these sort of, I don't know, I just felt like fingerstyle guitar is connected to something a little more root, deeper in the root.
And it fits
for me. And mind you, that's for me.
Right.
That's not saying everyone should do it. I'm just saying this is my impression. This is my interpretation. I don't think everyone should, because that would make it hard for me to work. So.
Well, I don't know if that influenced your sound or your sound influenced how you approach the guitar, but they definitely are in sync with the way you play, your voice, which goes from, a nice melodic hum to like a great crackly roar that just sort of fits all of those different styles that you sort of have crammed into how you present the band. And as a fan of all sorts of music, I like Lead Belly, early Dylan, old Dylan, all sorts of stuff. I try to branch out as much as possible to that earlier blues stuff, and you can just sort of like pick, I see what he's doing there, I like that sound, and it reaches with that. especially the last two albums you've made, which I think sound similar but different enough. And I can see some soul in the one before last, which I think was called Close to the Floor, a little more stripped down, but there's some stuff in Daytime Turn to Nighttime that's a little more gospel-y that totally works with what you have going on. And I hadn't listened to either of those albums full until a couple days ago when I got them at the show. And I was sort of just blown away by how much influence and style that you fit in there. It doesn't seem like a chore either. It's not like, this is this gospel song, this is this soul song, this is blues song. It just kind of flows right through, which is, I think, really hard to find nowadays.
I always just thought of it as a record to, when you approach a record, it's got to be cohesive, and that's why I work with a guy named the guy that produced the last three albums, Joe Mahan, because he really sees the bigger picture. Now, when I go to write an album, I definitely it's a bad habit where I don't just say, hey, I'm going to write a song, I'm going to make time to write a song today. I'll collect ideas, but I really don't put the collection of songs together until it's time to make a record. And that's just sort of the way I've been kind of conditioned myself to do it. But, then I collect up all these riffs and things like that, and then I sort of devote, the lyrics, there might be one or two things, that I've had that just sort of came together in between album cycles, but I usually try to start fresh at it so the material's a little bit more cohesive and unified and related to itself.
Right.
It's not the easiest way to do it, I suppose, because it tends to be really, really stressful. This last record, that time was so compressed and was so intense because, we'd done it. It was time to make this record, and wife and I we moved into our new house on the 15th and I started tracking on the 16th. And I'd written better than half, written or rewritten better than half that record in the 2 weeks prior to that. And just, during renovation. And now, mind you, I had a lot of these ideas, like riff ideas, and little notes and things like that. And I'd have little, snippets and things like that. But to have that sort of pressure on you, and I think, to compress this time, to be like, okay, your brain and body has to be fresh for these 4 hours that you're working today. And then the rest of this, the 10 hours afterwards, your brain doesn't have to work, and you can just sand and paint, mindlessly and do all this, this other stuff. But, it was like I had to really, really consciously, say, hey, because whereas I would just, sit at the kitchen table all day and all night for, months, or not months, but a couple, 30 days before tracking, maybe 2 months before tracking, where I would just knew it was coming, I guess about 8 weeks is what I would usually do. And a lot of that too, but that's affording yourself a lot of time to sort of really go to experiment with, the ideas that you've been collecting and the riffs you've been collecting and the parts you've been collecting for this, entire time. I'll put a little something, a little phrase or something down if not every day, every couple of days, just to have, to keep, just so you can remember. But compressing that editing time and making that part of the editing process of nope, that doesn't fit. Nope, that idea is not working. You are not making enough progress in this hour. You have got to do something else. You have to do something productive.
Right.
And to do that and come up with this record, I felt like was a real win. Because I was pretty friggin' scared about putting out a soft rock record, for sort of my version of, country soul or something. I don't know what, whatever term you want to something between Joe Tex and like, I don't know, Doc Watson.
Oh wow, that's pretty good actually. Well, you sort of have like a revolving door ensemble band, right? The Patrick Sweany band.
Yeah, well, man, it's just it's the this isn't a large business, and it's
right.
Lineups change. That's just the show must go on.
Right.
So, and that's the reason I moved to Nashville. So, I mean, I wish I had the salary to be like, I generated the income to like, you're my band. You are, here's your money. And this is what you get paid, and this is your, you're on retainer. But I mean, that just doesn't exist for me. So it's, but that's the reason I live in Nashville, because there's an entire, race of human beings that live in Nashville that, can learn music and play it passionately and connect and, and play a gig. I mean, Sam, the drummer's been with me for a long time. The guy that's out on the road with me right now was in my band 15 years ago, but he's one of my best friends in the world. He's got time off from Doyle Bramhall's band and is trying to move to Nashville from Atlanta. I'm like, I've got dates. They're all yours. Anything you want. So, and that's a guy I've just got this very deep musical connection with. But, I've been really lucky at finding the guys that really connect with the music. You've got to make it interesting for them. And, and you've got to, also get what you want out of people when they're performing, your songs. You depend on them so much to see, to show the world your baby.
I'm assuming it's going to be easier when you're working with guys you've known for that long, especially in this last album when you sort of compressed everything to sort of get into the studio and pick up with them.
Well, the guys that use in the studio, I tend to let Joe, the producer, choose the rhythm section.
Oh, cool.
And choose, because those are one of his guys that he works with, and that he can communicate with, and he knows and obviously he knows the guys. Their level of skill is just unbelievable, and we're able to communicate. And mind you, these guys also turned out to be friends of mine because I know Joe and I play music with them.
Right.
Yeah, Brian Owings on drums and Ron Oaf on bass. Those guys that's what they do. They get in the studio and they make the cool sounds to make the songs sound good.
It's interesting from the outside looking in because fans of, like myself, of music, like you have a perception of how a lot of mainstream artists are and how they're collaborators, but it's got to be like any other job where you get to know people and collaborate with people, and a certain type of sound you like, and that just draws you into a certain crowd, and you sort of draw off of that throughout your career.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I would, I've always had fantasies that would just be, of like, it would just be so great to have, like a band like the Rolling Stones, to be, to have that unified thing with your friends. But, it's just, that's never been it would have had to start it a long time ago. and it's just a different life, but, that just is never, I didn't have that person in my life that felt like I could collaborate with.
Oh, okay.
And that was like that, so there wasn't anybody, so it's just me. So that's why I grew up playing solo, because it was like there was no one else. It would have been great. I had little bands, like that. And I've had some like teachers and instructors and things like that. And I had a good friend. We had this sort of acoustic band, but I was, much more of a novice at it than he was. And I was also more into being a performer, I think,
Right.
And becoming a little less academic about it. So, it was just but everyone does, and that's just like the band thing. Everyone does things for their own reasons, and that's, you just gotta make your reasons, attractive to other people. So it's and that though a lot of like my heroes, always were very, singular people. I mean, there's definitely a lot of people I admire that are very much collaborators, but like B.B. King, it's always just been B.B.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got. I mean, obviously he has has a big band and it's an ensemble, and the guys he had a long time as much as he could, but there was never going to be anything that's going to wreck a B.B. show.
Right.
Including B.B. And the same with Ray Charles. Was a huge influence. Like, he knew what he had to do. So I've always admired that sort of, ability to roll with the punches kind of thing. So I think that's, that may have something to do with it, but it's just, this isn't a big enough business to feed a lot of families. So it's, so, you gotta, the American small businesses, it's a tight game, man. So, obviously you got to take care of your band as much as you can humanly afford.
So you guys are in the middle of a tour, right?
So we got 4 more shows.
Okay, cool. In the East, I'm assuming in the Northeast, New England area, or?
Actually, let's see, we're in Mifflinburg, PA tonight, which is about an hour east of State College. Then we go to D.C. Then we go to Virginia, Knoxville.
Cool.
Knoxville, we end in Knoxville, and then we come home. So yeah, we're sort of playing our way back down I-81.
Right. Yeah, well, I hope you guys come back soon, because I'd love to see another show. And it's a style that we don't get a whole lot around here that I would love to see catch on.
Well, absolutely, man. Well, I really appreciate you doing this and help to spread the word so it happens.
Yeah, same here. And I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to talk with us a little bit.
Oh, man, my pleasure.